Welcome to the Growth Room. Today we're exploring one of the most practical success books ever written, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. In this audiobook summary, you'll discover why small, consistent actions matter far more than occasional bursts of motivation, and how tiny daily improvements can lead to extraordinary success over time. If you have ever felt frustrated by a lack of progress, if you have ever started a new routine only to abandon it a few weeks later, or if you feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of your long-term goals, this is the blueprint you have been searching for. To truly understand this philosophy, we first need to understand the man behind it. Darren Hardy isn't just an author writing from an ivory tower. For years, he was the publisher of Success magazine, a position that granted him unprecedented front-row access to the world's most successful people. He interviewed top-tier CEOs, groundbreaking entrepreneurs, elite athletes, and cultural icons. Over decades of studying these peak performers, Hardy noticed a fascinating trend. Their extraordinary success was almost never the result of a single, massive stroke of luck event. It wasn't an overnight miracle. Instead, their triumph was always the logical consequence of a series of small, seemingly insignificant choices made consistently over time. This brings us to the core thesis of the book, the compound effect itself. At its heart, the compound effect is the principle of reaping huge rewards from a series of small, smart choices. The operating system of your life relies on a very straightforward formula. Small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals radical difference. The biggest challenge with this formula, and the reason most people fail to leverage it, is that the daily choices do not feel significant in the moment. When you make a minor positive choice, you don't see an immediate reward. If you eat a clean, healthy salad today, you don't wake up tomorrow with a lean physique. Conversely, if you eat a slice of chocolate cake today, your scale doesn't instantly jump up. Because the immediate consequences of our daily actions are completely invisible, it is incredibly easy to fall off the wagon or slip into negative routines. We live in a world hardwired for instant gratification. We want the quick fix, the magic pill, the viral video, or the overnight wealth. But the reality of sustainable, world-class success is that it is incredibly boring. It is slow, methodical, and relies on an unyielding commitment to incremental improvement. Think of it like a plane taking off from Los Angeles heading to Washington, D.C. If the nose of the plane is diverted just 3 degrees off course at takeoff, it seems like nothing. To the passengers, the shift is completely unnoticeable. However, as the plane travels across the country, that tiny 3-degree variance compounds over thousands of miles. By the time the aircraft reaches the East Coast, it will miss Washington, D.C. entirely and land roughly 150 miles away in Albany, New York. This is exactly how your daily habits operate. A tiny shift in your daily routine. Reading just 10 pages of a book, saving $5, or cutting out 15 minutes of mindless scrolling seems completely unnoticeable today. But carry that trajectory out over 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, and your life will land in a completely different destination than it would have otherwise. Let's ground this concept in a famous mathematical thought experiment that Hardy uses to illustrate the sheer power of compounding. The choice between $3 million in cash right now, or a single penny that doubles in value every single day for 31 days. If you offer this choice to most people, the vast majority will eagerly grab the $3 million. It's immediate, tangible wealth. If you chose the compounding penny, your friend who took the $3 million will be living a life of absolute luxury on day 1. By day 5, your penny has only doubled a few times and is worth a grand total of 16 cents. Your friend is laughing all the way to the bank. By day 10, your penny has grown to $5.12. By day 20, with only 11 days left in the month, your compounding penny is worth $5,242. It still feels like a joke compared to $3 million. But then, the magic of the compound effect begins to accelerate. On day 29, that small penny has surged to approximately $2.7 million. And on day 31, the invisible, quiet work of daily compounding hits its peak. That single penny explodes to become over $10,700,000. By being patient and allowing the compounding process to unfold, you ended up with more than 3 times what your friend took up front. This mathematical reality applies directly to your real-life personal development, finance, and career growth. Consider 3 childhood friends who grow up in the same neighborhood with similar incomes and backgrounds. Let's call them Larry, Scott, and Brad. They're all relatively happy and healthy, but they decide to take slightly different paths over the course of 2 years. Larry decides to just keep doing what he has always done. He is comfortable, doesn't change his habits, and lives life on autopilot. Scott, on the other hand, decides to make a few small, positive tweaks to his daily routine. Nothing drastic. He starts reading just 10 pages of an educational book every single day. He also cuts a mere 125 calories from his daily diet. Maybe he skips a sugary soda or swaps out a side dish. He also starts walking an extra 2,000 steps a day. Brad makes a few small, negative choices. He buys a shiny new television and starts watching an extra 15 minutes of streaming content night. He also adds a fun little habit. He buys a premium donut and an extra sugary coffee on his way to work every morning, adding about 125 extra calories to his daily intake. At the end of 5 months, there is no visible difference among the 3 friends. They all look the same, earn the same, and live the same. At the end of 10 months, still, nothing looks noticeably different. If you looked at their lives, you might think Scott's extra effort was a waste of time and Brad was having more fun. But around month 25, the compounding curves begin to violently diverge. Suddenly, the invisible changes become highly visible. Brad, who ate an extra 125 calories a day, has steadily gained over 30 pounds. The sleep disruption from late-night TV has made him sluggish at work, leading to poor performance and heightened stress. Larry is exactly where he was 2 years ago, stagnant, slightly more cynical, but unchanged. Scott, however, has dropped over 30 pounds of body fat. Because he read 10 pages a day, he completed roughly 24 books over those 2 years, gaining cutting-edge knowledge that earned him a major promotion at work. His relationships are better, his energy is soaring, and his financial baseline has shifted dramatically upward. A tiny daily variance of just 250 calories and a few pages of text created a massive, life-altering chasm between the 3 friends. That is the raw, unadulterated power of the compound effect in action. To truly harness the compound effect, you must move into part 2 of Darren Hardy's framework, choices. Your life is the sum total of every single decision you have ever made. Every great success, every devastating failure, every minor plateau, it all boils down to a choice. The problem is that most of our choices are completely unconscious. We walk through life on autopilot, reacting to external stimuli, scrolling through social media feeds, and making default decisions without ever considering their long-term compounding impact. If you want to change your life, you have to wake up and take absolute 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you. This is a tough pill to swallow for most people. It is far easier to blame the economy, your boss, your upbringing, your genetics, or your lack of time. But Hardy argues that the moment you point a finger at an external force, you surrender your power. When you take 100% responsibility, you suddenly hold all the cards. You realize that while you cannot control the weather, the market, or other people, you can always control your response, your work ethic, and your daily actions. Think about how this applies to a modern professional or an entrepreneur facing a tough market. If you blame a lack of sales on a bad economy, you'll sit on your hands and wait for things to get better. But if you take total responsibility for your revenue, you begin to look inward. You ask yourself, what choices am I making daily to improve my skills? Am I making the extra calls? Am I refining my product? Taking total ownership eliminates excuses and forces conscious decision-making. You stop drifting and start actively designing your future. So, how do you transition from unconscious drifting to conscious choice? Hardy introduces a deceptively simple, yet radically transformative tool: tracking. If you want to fix any area of your life, you must track every single action related to that area with absolute precision. If you want to get out of debt and build wealth, you must write down every single penny you spend for 3 straight weeks. If you want to lose weight or build muscle, you must log every single bite of food and every workout. If you want to become a world-class software developer, you must track the exact number of hours you spend writing clean code versus the hours spent distracted. Tracking works because it forces acute awareness. It drags your hidden, destructive habits into the bright light of reality. When you're forced to physically write down that you spent $4 on an afternoon candy bar, or that you wasted 45 minutes watching random videos, you can no longer lie to yourself. You become intensely aware of the micro choices that are currently compounding against you. Let's look at a practical example of how tracking builds wealth. Imagine a professional who feels like they never have enough money to invest. They claim they're maxed out, but then they decide to track every cent. They realize they're spending roughly $6 every single working day on a premium coffee and a pastry. $6 a day doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment. It's just pocket change. But let's run it through the compound effect. $6 a day adds up to roughly $30 a week, which is $120 a month, or nearly $1,500 a year. Now let's take that $1,500 a year and look at it through long-term thinking. If that same professional invested that money into a basic index fund compounding at a standard historical rate of return over 20 or 30 years, that simple coffee habit transforms into tens of thousands of dollars of retirement wealth. The choice was never just about a cup of coffee. The choice was between a momentary burst of caffeine today or true financial freedom tomorrow. This concept applies equally to personal growth, skills, and education. Consider a student or someone preparing for highly competitive exams. The sheer volume of material they need to master can feel terrifying. It is incredibly easy to procrastinate because the goal seems insurmountable. But what happens if you apply the compound effect framework? Instead of cramming for 12 hours straight right before the test, which leads to burnout and terrible retention, you choose to study just 2 hours every single day without fail. 2 hours a day seems modest. Your peers might be bragging about their weekend study marathons, but your daily consistency means you are racking up 14 hours of highly focused, stress-free learning every week. Over a single year, that compounds into over 700 hours of study time. Because you spaced it out consistently, your brain has had time to consolidate the information, build deep neural connections, and truly master the concepts. By the time exam day arrives, you aren't panicking. You are completely prepared, all because you chose small, incremental daily preparation over inconsistent bursts of frantic effort. The exact same rule applies to the tech industry. Think about a software developer who wants to learn a complex new programming language or master a new framework. The field moves so fast that information overload is a constant threat. It's easy to feel left behind. But if that developer commits to learning just one single coding concept or writing just 30 lines of clean code in that new language every single day, the transformation is stunning. 30 lines of code a day is over 10,000 lines of code in a year. In a few years, that small, daily discipline transforms a novice into a highly compensated, world-class expert. The magic of the compound effect is that it is completely neutral. It doesn't care if your choices are positive or negative. It will simply multiply whatever you feed it. If you feed it small, daily positive choices like tracking your spending, reading a few pages, or writing a bit of code, it will compound those actions into extraordinary wealth, wisdom, and expertise. But if you feed it small, seemingly harmless negative choices, like sleeping an extra 15 minutes, eating slightly poorly, or letting your focus drift onto social media, it will compound those choices into debt, poor health, and career stagnation. This moves us straight into part 3 of Darren Hardy's philosophy: habits. If choices are the steering wheel of your life, then habits are the engine. We like to think we are logical creatures who consciously think through everything we do, but psychological research reveals that up to 95% of everything we feel, think, and achieve is the direct result of a habit. We are quite literally walking bundles of conditioned routines. Most people try to change their lives by relying solely on willpower and motivation. They watch an inspiring video, get a rush of adrenaline, and vow to completely overhaul their lives starting tomorrow. They try to wake up 2 hours earlier, go to the gym for 2 hours, and cut out all junk food simultaneously. But motivation is a fickle friend. It's an emotion, and like any emotion, it fluctuates based on your sleep, your stress levels, and how your day is going. When the initial wave of excitement inevitably fades, people find themselves falling right back into their old, comfortable patterns. Hardy explains that consistency must always triumph over motivation. To build a life that stands the test of time, you must stop chasing emotional highs and start engineering rock-solid habits. To do this, you first need to understand how habits are formed. Every habit runs on a neurological loop: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode. The routine is the behavior itself. The reward is the hit of dopamine your brain receives, which solidifies the loop. If you want to eliminate a bad habit, you can't just try to suppress it through brute force. Instead, you have to break the loop by identifying the trigger and swapping out the behavior. Let's look at a modern challenge that almost everyone faces today: social media addiction and instant gratification. Imagine a content creator or a professional working from home. They're in the middle of a deep work session, trying to write an article or design a marketing campaign. Suddenly, they hit a difficult creative wall. That mental friction acts as a cue. Because their brain wants to escape the discomfort, they automatically pick up their phone and check their notifications. That is the routine. The quick hit of entertainment gives them a burst of dopamine, which is the reward. Over time, this loop becomes so deeply ingrained that the moment any work gets slightly challenging, the hand automatically reaches for the phone. To replace this destructive habit, you have to intercept the routine. You keep the same cue, the feeling of mental friction, but you deliberately change your response. Instead of grabbing your phone, you make a conscious choice to stand up, stretch for 60 seconds, or take 3 deep breaths. You still give your brain a physical break, but you do it in a way that protects your focus and momentum. Building positive routines is about making the right choices as easy as possible to execute. Hardy advocates for designing your environment to support your goals. If you want to build a habit of morning planning and reflection, don't leave it to chance. The night before, clear off your desk, open up your habit tracker, and put a pen right on top of your journal. When you wake up, the path of least resistance is to sit down and plan your day. If you want to read more, put a book on your pillow, so it's the first thing you see when you go to bed. By lowering the friction for positive habits and increasing the friction for bad ones, you naturally guide yourself toward long-term achievement. Let's look at how this applies to athletes or fitness enthusiasts. An elite athlete doesn't wait until they feel motivated to train. If they only trained when they felt inspired, they would never reach the podium. Instead, they rely on a tightly engineered daily routine. They prepare their gear the night before. They follow a strict pre-workout ritual, and they show up at the track at the exact same time every day. The routine bypasses the need for decision-making. By making the habit automatic, they conserve their mental energy for the actual physical performance. This is the power of a practical daily routine. When you automate the foundational elements of your day through morning and evening rituals, you create anchors of predictability in a chaotic world. Hardy highly recommends bookending your day. You may not be able to control what happens during the middle of your afternoon. Emergencies pop up, meetings run over, and disruptions happen, but you can almost always control how you start your morning and how you close your evening. A powerful morning routine might include 15 minutes of quiet reflection, reviewing your top 3 goals for the day, and spending 60 minutes in an uninterrupted deep work session before you ever check your email. An evening routine might include a quick weekly review or daily reflection, tracking your habits, and planning your schedule for the next morning. These small daily improvements form a protective shield around your mindset. ensuring that no matter what life throws at you, you are constantly compounding forward. When you combine clear goal clarity with consistent habit tracking, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You realize that success isn't a jackpot you win. It is a skill set you build one tiny, boring, repetitive habit at a time. And once these habits become a permanent part of your identity, you unlock the ultimate accelerator of human achievement: momentum. This drops us right into part 4 of Darren Hardy's framework, momentum. Hardy refers to this force by a very specific nickname: Big MO. Momentum is arguably the most powerful, yet least understood secret of the world's most successful people. To understand how momentum works, picture an old-fashioned cast iron water pump. If you have ever seen one of these, you know that to get water out of the ground, you have to pump a heavy lever up and down. When you first start pumping, absolutely nothing happens. You push the lever down, pull it up, and not a single drop of water appears. Most people give up right here. They pump for a week or two, see an empty bucket, and assume the well is dry. They think, "I've been working so hard, and I have nothing to show for it." But what they don't realize is that beneath the surface, the water is steadily rising through the pipe. If you keep pumping with the exact same intensity, eventually a tiny trickle of water spits out. If you stop pumping now out of celebration or exhaustion, the water immediately drops all the way back down to the bottom of the well, and you have to start the entire grueling process all over again. But if you keep pumping consistently, a fascinating shift occurs. Suddenly, a massive, steady stream of water gushes out of the spout. And here is the magic. Once the water is flowing and a vacuum is created, you don't need to slam the lever with massive effort anymore. You just need a gentle, easy, rhythmic tap every few seconds to keep the water pouring out effortlessly. That is the exact mechanics of positive momentum. The hardest part of any journey, whether you're an entrepreneur launching a startup, a content creator building a brand, or a professional aiming for a promotion, is always the beginning. Starting from a dead stop requires massive amounts of energy, discipline, and grit. You are fighting inertia. But once you establish a streak of positive daily actions, the laws of physics shift in your favor. Success begins to accelerate over time. The same amount of effort that yielded 0 results in month 1 starts yielding massive, explosive results in month 12. Let's look at how this applies to a modern content creator on YouTube. When you first start a channel, you might spend 10 hours scripting, filming, and editing a high-quality video, only for it to get 12 views, and 6 of those are from your mom. It feels incredibly discouraging. If you rely on emotion, you will quit. But if you understand Big MO, you keep pumping the lever. You release a video every single week on the exact same day at the exact same time. For the first 6 months, the growth curve is flat. But behind the scenes, you are building a library of content, refining your skills, and training the algorithm. Suddenly, around month 9, one video catches fire. A few thousand people watch it. Because you have a consistent catalog of other videos ready, those viewers stick around and watch more. Your subscriber count jumps from a few hundred to tens of thousands in a matter of weeks. You didn't work 10 times harder in month 9 than you did in month 1. You simply unlocked the compounding power of momentum. But remember, the compound effect is completely neutral, and momentum is a double-edged sword. Just as you can build positive momentum, you can easily build terrifying negative momentum. Think about how a negative cycle starts. It always begins with a single, seemingly harmless compromise. You miss one workout because you are tired. You tell yourself, it's just one day, no big deal. But missing that one day lowers the friction to miss a second day. By the 3rd day, a negative pattern is born. Soon, you aren't an athlete who missed a session. You are a person who has stopped working out entirely. Your energy drops, your diet slips, your sleep suffers, and suddenly you are caught in a downward spiral of negative compounding that leaves you feeling stuck, sluggish, and defeated. Breaking a negative cycle requires massive, concentrated intentionality. You cannot slide out of a bad rut. You have to shock your system to get the wheels turning in the right direction again. If you're trapped in an inconsistent routine or suffering from social media addiction, You break the cycle by reclaiming control of your micro choices immediately. You don't try to fix your entire life by next Tuesday. Instead, you focus on winning just one day. You in the morning. You track your habits for just 24 hours. You complete one deep work session. By stacking just a few small, positive wins back to back, you slowly arrest the downward slide and begin the slow, methodical process of building positive momentum all over again. Once you get big MO on your side, you become virtually unstoppable. Tasks that used to feel like an uphill battle, like saving money, studying for a competitive exam, or writing code, become second nature. They become part of who you are. But to keep that momentum alive and protect it from being derailed, you must fiercely guard the invisible forces that shape your mind every single day. This brings us directly to the external elements that dictate your trajectory, your influences. This brings us straight into part 5 of Darren Hardy's framework, influences. No matter how disciplined you are, and no matter how strong your habits may be, you are a product of your environment. You cannot expect to make positive daily choices if you are constantly exposing yourself to negative, draining, and counterproductive forces. Hardy categorizes these external forces into 3 distinct types of influences: your information diet, your associations, and your physical surroundings. Let's start with your information diet. In our modern world, we are facing an unprecedented epidemic of information overload. We are bombarded with nonstop news cycles, social media algorithms engineered to trigger outrage, and endless streams of digital noise. Your brain is a processing machine. Whatever you feed, it will dictate what it outputs. If you feed your mind a steady diet of sensationalized news, fear-mongering headlines, and toxic internet drama, your brain will naturally output anxiety, cynicism, and fear. To combat this modern challenge, you must implement a strict media consumption strategy. Hardy heavily advocates for a total elimination of mindless media scrolling. Instead, replace that negative content with protective, educational, and inspiring audiobooks, educational podcasts, and instructional material. Imagine the difference between a professional who listens to doom and gloom news during their 45-minute morning commute versus one who spends that same time listening to a personal development book or an industry-specific lecture. Over a single year, that shift in your information diet adds up to hundreds of hours of high-level education, completely shifting your mindset and giving you a massive competitive edge. The second, and perhaps most critical, type of influence is your associations, the people you choose to spend your time with. Harvard sociologist Dr. David McClelland found that the people you habitually associate with determine up to 95% of your success or failure in life. Darren Hardy echoes this by reminding us of the famous rule: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look closely at your inner circle of friends, family, and colleagues. Are they pulling you up, or are they dragging you down? Do they challenge you to be better, or do they enable your bad habits and laugh at your big dreams? This doesn't mean you need to cruelly cut off everyone in your life who isn't a millionaire, but it does mean you need to be ruthlessly intentional about how much time you allocate to certain people. Hardy divides your relationships into 3 categories: dissociations, limited associations, and expanded associations. Dissociations are the toxic people you must completely cut out of your life because they actively sabotage your progress. Limited associations are friends or family members who are pleasant, but perhaps lack drive or possess negative habits. You can love them, but you limit your exposure to them, so their stagnation doesn't rub off on you. Finally, expanded associations are the mentors, high achievers, and growth-oriented peers you actively seek out to stretch your boundaries. If you're a student preparing for competitive exams, an entrepreneur trying to scale a startup, or a personal development enthusiast, finding an accountability partner or a mentor is an absolute game changer. A mentor acts as a shortcut. They have already walked the path you are currently on, and they can point out the hidden potholes before you step in them. Even if you can't access a high-level mentor in person, you can access their minds through their books, their courses, and channels like the Growth Room. By flooding your mind with the thoughts of world-class performers, you naturally elevate your own baseline of thinking. Lastly, Your physical environment plays a massive role in your success. If your workspace is cluttered, chaotic, and filled with distractions, your mind will mirror that chaos. Designing your environment for success means removing temptation. If you suffer from social media addiction during deep work sessions, leave your phone in an entirely different room. If you want to build a habit of healthy eating, clear the junk food out of your pantry entirely. Don't rely on willpower to resist temptation when you can use your environment to eliminate the temptation altogether. By taking control of your information diet, curating your friendships, and structuring your physical space, you create a powerful protective bubble around your habits and momentum. You stop reacting to the world and start proactively curating the inputs that shape your future. Once your environment is fully optimized, you are ready to unleash the final, explosive layer of the compound effect: acceleration. This brings us to the final, explosive phase of Darren Hardy's framework: acceleration. Up to this point, you have learned how small choices, rock-solid habits, unstoppable momentum, and a curated environment combine to build steady, predictable success. But Part 6 and 7 are all about how to hit the turbocharger. This is where you discover how to outpace your competition, push past your perceived limitations, and lock in lasting achievement. In life, everyone hits a wall. Whether you are an athlete pushing through a grueling workout, a software developer hunting down a critical bug for 10 hours straight, or a content creator facing a massive wave of creative burnout, the wall is completely inevitable. Most people view the wall as a sign to quit. They think, this is too hard, I've done enough. But Hardy argues that hitting the wall is actually the exact moment where the real growth happens. When you face a roadblock, everyone else in your field is facing the exact same roadblock. When you choose to push through, keep your discipline, and deliver a little bit extra, you aren't just making incremental progress anymore. You are multiplying your results. You are accelerating past the crowd because they stopped at the exact same hurdle you chose to clear. True acceleration relies on a precise, practical framework that you can implement immediately. Let's look at the comprehensive 5-step compound effect framework to summarize how all of these pieces lock together. 1. Absolute goal clarity. You must know exactly what you want. Vague goals like, I want to be successful, produce vague results. Write down your specific targets for your health, wealth, and career. 2. Ruthless habit tracking. Bring your unconscious actions into reality by tracking them daily. Use a simple notebook or a digital log to track your deep work hours, your savings, your pages read, or your workouts. 3. Environmental design. Eliminate temptation. Curate your information diet. Limit toxic relationships, and seek out expanded associations, mentors, and accountability partners. 4. Unyielding consistency. Commit to the long game. Prioritize minor, repetitive daily actions over occasional, massive bursts of exhausting effort. 5. Continuous reflection. Never drift on autopilot. Review your progress consistently to ensure your trajectory matches your ultimate destination. To bring this entire philosophy to life, you need an actionable structure. You can immediately build this into a practical daily routine designed to protect your focus and accelerate your growth. Morning planning. Before checking your phone or email, spend 15 minutes reviewing your goals, reflecting on your purpose, and identifying your top 3 needle-moving tasks for the day. Deep work sessions. Block out 90 minutes of uninterrupted time. Leave your phone in another room. Close your browser tabs and focus entirely on your most critical project, whether that is writing code, studying for a competitive exam, or scripting content. Daily reading. Dedicate just 20 minutes a day to nonfiction books or personal development material. That small slice of time will easily compound into dozens of books read every single year. Evening reflection and tracking. Before going to sleep, open your log and track your habits. Reflect on what went well and what didn't. Weekly review. Every Sunday, look at the big picture. Analyze your spending, review your project timelines, and deliberately plan your upcoming week so you never walk into Monday unprepared. The biggest mistake people make when trying to apply this is impatience. They look for immediate validation, get discouraged when they don't see instant results, and abandon their routine right before the compounding curve begins to skyrocket. They fall victim to the illusion of the quick fix. But world-class achievement requires patience, delayed gratification, and a commitment to lifelong learning. Thank you so much for listening to this complete audiobook summary of The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. If you found value in these principles and want to ensure you keep making the right choices every single day, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below sharing the one small habit you're going to start tracking today. Welcome to the Growth Room. This channel is your digital sanctuary for high-level personal development. We are entirely dedicated to breaking down the world's most powerful books on habits, productivity, success, mindset, wealth, discipline, and personal growth. Our mission is to provide you with the practical blueprints, tools, and strategies you need to master your micro choices and design an extraordinary life. As we close out this journey together, remember this: your current life is the perfect reflection of your past choices. If you want a different future, you must make different choices today. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait until you feel motivated, and do not wait for next Monday. Pick up the pen, track your habits, protect your environment, and start pumping that water lever. Keep showing up, keep building your discipline, and let the quiet, invisible force of the compound effect lift you to greatness. We will see you next time inside the Growth Room.